Alright, so I'm about to head out and track the rattlesnakes again. The interesting thing about today is, well, tropical storm, hurricane, Sandy, whatever you want to call the superstorm that's hitting the East Coast is sending one of its bands our way right now. It's been raining off and on for the last couple of hours, and it's stopped for the moment. So that gives me a little window to get into the woods, locate the snakes, and see what they're up to. This change in the weather, maybe it's prompted them to head into their dens. A week and a half ago when I last located them, the two snakes, they were very close to their dens. The female Zoe was in her interim den just above her main den site, and the male Utsanati was a few hundred feet above his primary den site. So I wonder where they are now. Let's go find out. Well, I found Zoe. I trekked all the way down the mountainside down to her last year's den site, and she is in the den. Take a look at this. Her den is located underneath this little 1.5-inch diameter mountain laurel shrub. It's just a inconspicuous clump of forest. No rocks, no telltales of any kind. Other than when I swing the antenna and point it, I get a strong signal. She is underground right here. And there are some holes that go back under the earth. I'm not going to use my hand for obvious reasons. Most obvious hole being that one. See that hole? Right where my antenna is pointing. And it's about the size that a rattlesnake could use. So that may be the entrance, not sure. I really wish I had a way of looking underground and seeing Zoe. Seeing where she dens up. Is this just an old root hollow left by the dead tree over here to the right? This old snag undoubtedly has several roots that are rotten underground. And they, undoubtedly run this far away. I mean, I'm only, 30 feet from the tree, so undoubtedly there's roots that have rotted underground, leaving tunnels where snakes and rodents can take shelter in the winter. It's hard to tell. I'm not going to excavate the den just to find out, because that would ruin her den. But it would be really interesting to send maybe some type of a fiber optic device underground and look around and see Zoe in her hibernation room. Hibernation location, whatever you want to call it. So anyway, that is where Zoe is now. She's moved a couple of hundred feet over the last week and a half from her interim den to the southwest, where she was last time we located her. And I'm figuring that she's probably going to be here until spring. Let's go check on Utsanati. Well, I've found Utsanati, and he is not in the exact location where he hibernated last year, which is directly under my antenna. He is about 15 feet up the hill, right in this area. Underground. There's no obvious entryways into the earth at this point, and it's just here on the side of this hill, just like with Zoe. It's very interesting. We backtrack down the hill about 25 feet. The only obvious entryway is this hole. I know it's kind of hard to see that it is a hole, but it's a hole. Pretty good size hole with that. And as you can see when I turn on the light, it goes a good ways down inside the earth. Now, is this the entryway into Utsanati's den? I don't know. It's that simple. I don't know. But it sure seems possible when you look at the distance between there and where he hibernated last year underneath those rhododendrons, and a little ways up the hill where he is now. Just like with Zoe, there's probably a lot of old root tunnels from a dead tree. There could be rodent tunnels. Who knows what's underneath the ground here, but he is in his hibernation location, his den, and we may not see him again until spring. So it looks like both snakes have gone into hibernation. And it has been an incredible year tracking these rattlesnakes. I mean, just think back for a moment. Over the last 12 months, they spent the winter in these two exact locations that you have just seen. With the exception of course, Utsanati, a few feet difference, but hey, close enough for me. And probably close enough for him. Well, then they woke up in the spring. Utsanati went way over the mountain to the other side of Earthshine, up above Top Knoll, to a big rocky outcrop. Spent a few weeks there, then he came back to the woodpile. That's pretty amazing stuff right there. Then he had to be taken out of the wild, have a little repair surgery done on his transmitter antenna because it had pulled loose and the range was getting progressively weaker and weaker. So he had to have a little surgery done that straightened out his antenna. Got that done pretty quick, released him back at the woodpile. He made a beeline for the power line access way, where he spent the rest of the summer, just sitting in the sun and feeding, I'm sure. Then he made his way here. Zoe, on the other hand, boy, did she do some traveling. She woke up in the spring from her hibernation location. She went to her interim den. She went over the mountain, very close to Utsanati's woodpile. Spent a few days there. Maybe her and Utsanati met, had a little date, who knows. And then, along the ridge she went. Down the other side of the ridge, off into a big field. She spent some time in the field, visited an old dilapidated building, probably for feeding. She went back and forth between one log up above the waterfall several times. I don't know what it was about that log that she found special and unique, but she needed that site. She visited my friends Dave and Christina's house. Well, not their house, but their property. Spent a little bit of time there, and then made her way back to the log that I'd previously mentioned before heading back up the ridge, down the other side to her interim den again. Third time I found her at the interim den, and then moved back down to her hibernation location. So that's both snakes' year in a few moments. And it shows that they really do use the same sites over and over. These snakes are not threatening or dangerous in any way unless you make a mistake, step on one, it has to defend itself, or you try to injure a rattlesnake. If you try to hurt it, injure it, capture it, of course it will defend itself. Those are some of the things that I learned this year. Oh, and by the way, I also learned that it's very hard to make a rattlesnake rattle, especially one that you know. These snakes have learned my scent, and I did not have either of these snakes rattle at me this year, other than Utsanati when I had to capture him so that we could have his transmitter antenna repaired. And I don't blame him. I would get upset too if somebody picked me up and shoved me in a box and toted me halfway across the country and did a surgery on me. I think I'd be a little mad too. But if you're interested in learning more about these snakes and their place in nature and their life, just check out the rest of my videos here on YouTube. Their whole story is here for you to learn. And learn that these animals are special and not something to fear, but something to respect and something to preserve and conserve. So take a look, learn all you can, and then teach people. Teach people about wildlife, about nature. That's where respect comes from. You can't learn this in a book. You have to learn it by doing. So I challenge all of you, get out in the field, learn about nature, sit underneath a tree, sit beside a river or the ocean, and just absorb everything around you. Because without nature, what do we have? It's where all of our food comes from, our water, our air, our life. So don't just, sit inside and play video games, but get outside. Do something real. Do something real like I'm doing right now. I mean, look what's going on around me. It's raining. It's a cold rain. The seasons are changing. The leaves are falling. The snakes have moved into their hibernation spots. And Hurricane Sandy is pounding the East Coast. We're about to get snow. And I'm right in the middle of it. This is incredible. I'm experiencing nature. You need to do the same. Get out. Get out there before it's too late.